Line Walkers by Flaming Leaf. Once upon a blue moon, a soul managed to escape death's cold grip and descended back onto the mortal plane. Tobirama's duty might not be as done as he thought, but it is pretty hard to change things when you've been reduced to a ghost. Lucky enough, there just happens to be a blonde child who seems so similar to his beloved brother. No pairings. This is the author talking about the story before it begins. I will be changing things, concepts, workings of affinities, major plot points, etc. This story is not a retelling of the canon story. If you want to read yet another everything happens as it always does fanfiction, this is not the right place for you to be. If you decide that the story is not for you at any point of time, cool, no hard feelings, but please don't go off ranting about things not being canon. I don't need lectures on the source material, I know it, I just want to write an AU. What you can expect: lots of bonding, fluffy and sad moments, no romance to take away the main focus, an engaging plot. Depending on the story's development, the ratings might be up to M later. Arc 1. The Naidame Hokage. Nobody knew why it happened. Nobody knew how it happened. But sometimes, it just did. Maybe because it was of the energy saturating the world. Perhaps it was the will of a higher power. But sometimes, once upon a blue moon, it happened. A soul managed to escape death's grip and descend back onto the mortal plane. Forever chained between worlds they remained, cursed to walk the thin border between this world and the beyond, reduced to mere shadows of their former selves. Ghosts, in-betweeners, line walkers, unseen by all. Until the very day a desperate father called for death itself and received an answer. The translucent figure stood motionless on top of the Shodai's head, looking down at the village below. Vigilant and tall, as if standing guard over it, Naruto could not see its expression from his place on the Fourth's memorial, but he could almost feel the sad pride surrounding the strong frame, and he found himself eerily reminded of his grandfather. He had seen the third standing at the window of the Hokage Tower, doing the exact same thing more than once. The young boy was curious. What was this apparition, and why did it look so sad? Slowly, he rose from his seated position and walked towards the strange figure. It seemed to have sensed his approach and turned its head into Naruto's direction, and the child realized that the human-shaped apparition was actually a middle-aged man. Gray eyes rested on him, and Naruto could see the tightly leashed emotions in the man's insubstantial gaze. Pride, longing, sadness. And another one Naruto was most familiar with: loneliness. The child immediately decided that he would help the man get rid of that particular feeling, because he knew firsthand just how bad that felt. There was a strange apathy in the man's gaze, as if he was looking at Naruto, but not actually seeing him. The child did not like that. Nobody should look that empty. The man turned his head back, and wordlessly resumed his silent sentry. Naruto's gaze followed his, and he smiled involuntarily. Konoha, his home, his village, his to watch, to love, and one day, his to protect. Perhaps then people would finally respect him, acknowledge him. "It's a nice view," he commented lightly, and sat down on the warm stone next to the man. The man, stilled in his posture, became more rigid as he slowly looked at the boy seated next to him. "What did you say?" Naruto tilted his head and met the man's gaze with his own. "It's a nice view," Gray eyes widened slightly in surprise, and the man stepped closer, completely alert now. "You can see me?" he asked, his voice tinted with a strange mixture of amazement, authority, and hope. Yeah," Naruto answered confusedly. The man was right here. A bit translucent perhaps, but he was there. So why should he not be able to see him? For several moments, the man just stared at him, and Naruto had to suppress the sudden urge to fidget under his scrutiny. There was just so much presence in this man that he felt somewhat intimidated. But then the stranger smiled slightly, and Naruto felt himself relax again. "How unexpected," the man mused. "I did not expect this possibility." Why?" Naruto asked in a puzzled voice. "You're here." "Ghosts aren't normally visible, child," the man answered calmly. "Ghosts?" Naruto instinctively jumped backwards and completely forgot that he was currently sitting on the floor. So instead of making a nice strategic withdrawal, his evasive maneuver only resulted in a rather ungraceful fall into his back, and he found himself staring at the man. Ghost man? Let's go with ghost. From a reclined position, who eyed the child with a distinctively amused expression. "Yes, child, ghosts." "They're real?" Naruto exclaimed, equally surprised and horrified at that notion, and so overwhelmed by that discovery that he did not even think about standing up again. "Not many, but a few," the man confirmed, and gave the child in front of him a rather pointed look. "How long do you intend to stay like that?" he asked dryly. Naruto jumped hastily to his feet and rubbed his neck in embarrassment. "So, I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and, who are you?" The man smirked slightly. "You're standing on my brother's head, child." "Your brother's?" Naruto repeated and stared down at the stone beneath him. Feeling a draught of sudden realization, his head whipped up again and he stared at the still smirking man. "Naidame?" The man's smirk became even more pronounced. "Indeed." Tobirama Senju had never expected to end up like this. When he found himself suddenly floating in the middle of Konoha, he at first thought that he was dreaming, and he would have believed it too, if there was not one tiny reason that made it impossible. Dead people did not dream, and they could not be captured in a genjutsu either. So whatever this was, it was real. At a complete loss on what to do, Tobirama had floated aimlessly around the village, trying to talk to people, but nobody seemed to see him, or even hear him. Despondent about being completely alone, Tobirama had visited the Hokage's office and had spent many hours watching his people going about his business. He was not too happy with the things he saw. Konoha had changed after his death, and not for the better. And on top of that, the Uchiha clan seemed to be rather restless, so Tobirama was worried, but there was nothing he could do. He was, for all intents and purposes, dead. Sad, worried, and tired as he was, he had retreated into the outskirts of the village, resigned to be unheard and unseen, until time ended or death reclaimed his wandering soul. But then, unexpectedly, he had met him, Uzumaki Naruto, and the child could see him, talk with him, and suddenly, Tobirama did not feel so lonely. Just what is that atrocity supposed to be? Your left side is completely open. Naruto jumped in a surprise and whirled around. He had known for the Naidame for 2 months now, but he was still not used to the ghost's random appearances. "Ah, you scared me," he complained loudly, waving his arms around to emphasize this point. The second simply raised an unimpressed eyebrow at the boy's antics. And you didn't answer my question. Naruto grumbled and turned to face the ghost. Sensei taught me. What's wrong with the style? Tobirama furrowed his brow. Your sensei? Are you sure he taught it to you like this? Yeah, Naruto agreed. He said it was important to keep the angle. I see, the Nine answered slowly. I shall accompany you to class tomorrow. I want to see just what they teach you there. Naruto suddenly seemed very nervous. Hey, don't you have anything better to do? Gray eyes studied the fidgeting child in front of him with sharp interest. No, he answered simply. I do not. Are you sure? Are you really sure that you want to come? Naruto asked again as he grabbed his backpack. It'll probably be very boring for you. Yes, I am sure, the second replied firmly. Naruto sighed and stopped protesting. He knew that that tone meant the former Hokage had made up his mind and would not be dissuaded. Carefully locking his door behind him, Naruto left for the academy, a ghostly figure walking right next to him. There was definitely something going on. It was evident in the way the passers-by interacted with his young companion, or more precisely, in the complete lack of interaction. It was as if there was an invisible wall separating the child from the rest of the citizens. It was nothing really obvious, just simple things, like people giving him way more space than others, turned backs when he passed by, or the occasional cold or disapproving look. But Tobirama's sharp gaze missed nothing. He glanced at the boys next to him. He was still showing his cheerful grin, but it seemed somehow strained and did not really reach his eyes. A mask, the ghost thought quietly. A well-crafted one, but not well enough to fool him. The child was hurting. He could see it clearly. Uzumaki Naruto. Uzumaki. The same clan as his brother's wife. Could it be? Was he related to his brother? To him? Was he carrying her burden? Judging by the people's reactions, he had a strong inkling that at least the last question could be answered with a yes. Why else would they shun him? Tobirama frowned in displeasure and was secretly rather relieved that his brother was not here to witness this. He would have been incensed at such behavior, and Tobirama himself was less than pleased as well. Making the one person carrying enormous military power unhappy with his own village was not a wise strategy, and particularly screamed for trouble. Crazy I didn't think of that, isn't it? And no child deserves to be treated like this. His brother's quiet voice added in his head, and Tobirama found himself unconsciously agreeing with him. The academy gates were now appearing in front of him, and Tobirama's attention returned to the current happenings. Everything else could wait. The kunai missed its target by at least 6 inches. How do you measure that? I'm sorry. Naruto narrowed his eyes in determination and tried again. Miss. Someone behind him giggled. The teacher remained quiet. Next, he ordered sharply. Sighing quietly, Naruto picked the tools up and made way for the next child. You need to bend your wrist more, Akira. Sumio sensei told the boy who had almost managed to hit bullseye. But good job. Naruto flopped down on the grass and leaned against the wall. It was always the same thing. His peers got a nice evaluation, a tip to get better, and he got stony silence. Something flickered next to him and he turned his head slightly to see the Naidame standing next to him. There was a slight displeased frown on the man's face as he watched the proceedings. Uzumaki, his teacher snapped sharply. If you don't want to participate, you can wait inside. Yes, sensei, Naruto answered automatically and stood up. grumbling silently at the unfairness. It was not like he was the only one sitting down. Several snickers followed him as he returned to his classroom, where he immediately climbed on the windowsill. At least he could watch the training ground from this position. That was uncalled for. The Night Dame's intangible form appeared behind him. Naruto shrugged. I'm used to it. This is a regular occurrence? Yeah. Naruto answered matter-of-factly, eyes firmly fixed on the scene behind the glassy wall. I always do something wrong, he added quietly. Have you told someone about this? The Night Dame inquired sharply, trying to meet the child's evasive eyes on the transparent reflection. They don't listen, Naruto replied after a moment of silence, and it seemed like he was talking about so much more than just his problems at school. But it's okay. I'll get strong and protect them all, and then they'll want to listen. People rarely listen, brother. You have to make them, but never through violence. Guide them, protect them, and they will lend you their ears. Tobirama stared at the child who reminded him so much of his brother, and he could have sworn that he had just seen Hashirama's face looking back at him from the stainless window. Naruto glanced over his cup of ramen to the man standing at the window. His companion was strangely quiet. Not that he usually talked much. The ghost did not have a habit of indulging in useless conversations, but this complete silence was new to him. He had hardly spoken since the moment in the classroom, and that had been 3 days ago. Instead, the ghost had been watching him as he went about his day, measuring him with strange looks as if trying to figure out a puzzle. Somehow it made him feel like he was being judged. It was unnerving. He had tried his best to ignore the man's newfound hobby, but it was particularly impossible to overlook the Night Dame's imposing presence. It just demanded attention. Naruto anxiously bit his lips, torn between asking if everything was right and not wanting to disturb the man's clearly deep thoughts. But before he could make up his mind, the man's shoulders suddenly straightened and he turned around, catching Naruto's uneasy gaze with stern eyes. Your lack of education is unacceptable, and I refuse to spend an indefinite amount of time with an uneducated child. Naruto swallowed and unconsciously lowered his head, staring at the bottom of the empty ramen cup. Get your gear, the ghost ordered sharply. I want to see just how much damage control I will have to do. Naruto's head whipped up, and for several seconds he just stared in a stunned disbelief as his mind refused to process the man's words, before he jumped up and scrambled to follow the order. The ghost eyed the panting child with critical eyes. It was not as bad as he had feared, but the child had only been attending the academy for several months. Still, the lack of correct instructions was visible. It was good that he had decided to interfere now. A bit later and the wrong stances would have been integrated too deeply to easily integrated. Naruto clearly had talent, but his inability to remain focused on things that did not interest him was somewhat irritating. He would have to teach him patience and discipline. Nodding slightly to himself, Tobirama addressed his newest student. We will stop here for today. You still have homework to do. Go and clean yourself up. You have 15 minutes. Yes, sensei. He watched as the child straightened himself and obediently scampered into the direction of the bathroom, grumbling silently about annoying homework. Being a shinobi means being deceptive. The Night Dame lectured as Naruto carefully guided the brush over his paper, trying to write the kanji for moon. Shinobi do not follow the samurai's code of honor, although we generally have our own set of morals, even if they sometimes tend to be somewhat flexible. Naruto shifted slightly and glanced at the man walking up and down in front of him. Shinobi are usually not upfront about their skills, and while they strive to appear competent, they will always keep a hidden ace up their sleeve. Never let an enemy know everything you can do, or he will find a way to counter you and you will become vulnerable. The Naidame stopped and fixed Naruto with a stern glance. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I think so, Naruto answered slowly, using his free hand to rub his neck. You want me to hide some of the things I can do, but not everything. He tilted his head. Where are you going with this, Sensei? The ghost smirked slightly. Good, you're learning. He stepped closer to his student and placed both of his hands on the tabletop. Naruto distinctly wondered why they were not passing right through it. I want you to continue keeping me a secret. If someone finds out about this ability of yours, you might be in danger. In danger, Sensei? Naruto was confused. Why would people knowing about his sensei be dangerous? Yes, Naruto. Danger. The Naidame answered, subtly moving into the child's personal space. We do not know where this ability of yours comes from. We don't know if you can see anyone but me. But there are people out there, bad people, who would not hesitate to hurt you just to figure this out. Naruto shrank into his seat, staring wide-eyed at the man in front of him. Hurt me? They would hurt him. He swallowed and nodded rapidly. I won't tell. He wouldn't. The Naidame studied the child's expression, and obviously satisfied with whatever he found, he easily stepped back and allowed Naruto some breathing room. Good. Now get down and meditate. Naruto obeyed immediately, more than eager to escape the man's scrutiny. His teacher was really intense. He settled down on the floor and closed his eyes, trying to keep still, but suddenly his right foot started to itch, and he found himself shuffling around. Don't fidget. The second reprimanded him, and Naruto felt something cold passing through his shoulders. He shuddered, and for a second he wished that his teacher's hands were real. He really would have preferred being held down to this cold sensation. As if sensing his discomfort, the Naidame stepped back and started to walk him through a breathing exercise. In, out, in, out. Naruto's body felt very warm and his fingers prickled pleasantly. He tried to latch onto the warm feeling and attempted to follow it as it coursed through his veins in a gentle yet powerful flow. He submerged himself into, and as he sank deeper and deeper, the soft warm trickle slowly turned into an endlessly wide yellow stream. Tobirama felt an unexpected surge of pride as his student started to glow in a soft yellow light. Yes, Naruto was definitely talented. Passable. Naruto sighed in relief and looked at the small stone pendant sitting innocently on the tabletop. The surface was littered with thin, intricate brush lines connecting and intersecting until they formed one single complex seal. And this is really gonna help with my chakra control, Sensei? Naruto asked in disbelief. Try focusing your chakra into it, the Naidame instructed and walked closer. Naruto concentrated on the warm feeling and guided it towards the pendant. It started to glow in a somewhat murky, almost black yellow. Curiously, he looked at his teacher. Depending on the amount of chakra you push into the pendant, the pendant will glow in different colors. It is almost black now because your chakra is completely uncontrolled and unrefined. The better your control gets, the cleaner and brighter the color will become. I want you to practice until you manage to turn it bright yellow. Naruto slumped down slightly. That's so boring. Do I really have to? The Naidame pinned him with a very stern look. Yes. Then he paused and considered the displeased child in front of him. But I suppose focusing for so long will be rather difficult for you. Perhaps you need an incentive. Incentive? Naruto repeated warily, suddenly getting a huge feeling of foreboding. I don't know. Yes, the ghost smirked slightly. Until you've mastered this task, you will not be allowed any ramen. What? Naruto screamed, jumping up in outrage. Sensei, you can't. That's too mean. I can, and I will, the ghost replied calmly, looking decidedly unimpressed at the young boy's outburst. Now get working. Oh, and Naruto, the ghost added as the child sunk despondently on the floor. For this little tantrum of yours, you'll be copying Rule 15 down 100 times. Don't let your emotions rule your actions. Naruto whimpered. Why did his teacher have to be so cruel? Before we get into it, if you don't want me to disappear again like your father did, like the video. Just like it. It's not that hard. Take your time. No, go ahead. And while you're down there, comment anime physics. I appreciate it. Now let's get into the video. You're improving, Tobirama commented offhandedly when Naruto's pendant turned into a dark yellow color. The young boy smiled brightly. The last 3 weeks had been particularly gruesome. Tobirama had kept true to his words, and Naruto had not been allowed to eat even a single noodle. It was torture, at least in his opinion. But in a rare bout of wisdom, Naruto had kept this complaint to himself. His sensei would not have appreciated it. I believe it is time for the next step of your training. Naruto's head snapped up. Really? He asked excitedly. Yes, the Naidame answered calmly. Follow me. Naruto had not beat. You know what? I'm not gonna even complain. Okay, they probably didn't have Grammarly. Or I don't know if they had grammar tools. Anyways, Naruto did not need to be told twice. Sensei? Naruto curiously glanced at the trees surrounding him. I can't read. What are we doing here? And where are we? The village outskirts, Tobirama answered calmly. My brother and I used to spend our time here when we were children. Naruto tried to picture his teacher as a child, but failed horribly. He just could not equate this serious man with ever being young. And we're here so you can learn how to combat. Let's go with that. Naruto immediately stopped his unsuccessful imaginative attempts at mentally drawing a young Naidame in favor of focusing on the real elder version. You're teaching me how to fight? Naruto's eyes sparked. I am. The Naidame agreed. Since I am physically not capable of sparring with you, we shall do it differently. How? Naruto asked curiously. I will come to that soon. Before that, we need to discuss something else. Then the man leveled Naruto with a serious look. Are you aware of the crystal ball in the Hokage's office? Naruto scrunched his face and thought. That weird thing he keeps on a cushion? Naruto had seen it quite often, but never really thought about it. He had always assumed that his Gigi kept it as some sort of strange decoration. The man had a weird taste like that. There was not even a spot of orange in his office. For Kami's sake, how could that not be strange? The Naidame's lips twitched at that description. The weird thing is key to the village barriers and allows him to view everything that happens within this village. Naruto froze. Everything that happens in this village? Everything? His eyes widened in horror. He can see me using the bathroom? Well, the second replied dryly. I do believe that he stops watching once it comes to that. But essentially, yes. Tobirama watched the student as he worked through the implications of his words. He wondered if Naruto was going to figure out the problem he was hinting at on his own. Granted, he could have just told him outright, but it would not help Naruto to be spoon-fed his answers. He wanted the child to grow, and for that Naruto needed to learn to think on his own. Tobirama wanted him to reach his own conclusions, to form his own opinions, and plans plans and solutions, because he was not just teaching another soldier to mindlessly obey orders. Tobirama was forming a leader. Naruto swallowed. He wasn't the only one. Okami, that meant Gigi could have seen everything he had done, all his pranks. Was he watching right now? Was he watching while he was talking to... His head snapped up. So he could see us right now. Something like approval shimmered in his sensei's eyes. Indeed. Naruto felt a surge of pride at being correct. It did not last long because he realized that it was practically impossible now to train in secret. Unless... His eyes widened as the realization hit him. His sensei did bring him to this place for a reason. Tobirama smirked and rose. I see you understand. Good. Follow me. There's something I want to show you. Naruto obediently followed the ghost as he floated deeper into the woods. There was the sound of running water ahead. They were close to the stream. Tobirama stopped next to a rock formation. Take out the pendant you made, he ordered. Confused, Naruto took out the stone bead and looked at his sensei, who pointed at a flat stone. Put it on there, and channel your chakra into it. Naruto crouched down and placed the pendant carefully on the middle of the stone. Narrowing his eyes, he gently coaxed the warmth in him to obey. Coaxed? I don't know. The lines started to appear, slowly over the stone's surface. His pendant glowed, and Naruto stared in awe as the trees in front of him vanished and a small path emerged. Take the pendant and go. Naruto obeyed eagerly. He loved exploring secret places. The widening path took them higher and higher until they were finally standing on a wide ledge overlooking Konoha. Naruto's eyes widened and he ran forward to look down. The view is even better than from the Hokage mountain. The ghost stepped next to him and looked down at the village, eyes clouded with both pride and sadness. Yes. Naruto glanced at him. His sensei's posture reminded him of the time he had first met him, lonely and distant. My brother and I called it the Mountain of Dreams. Tobirama began quietly, his voice carrying through the air with the weight of an important yet faded memory. It was here that he first expressed his desire for peace. It was this place he came to when the darkness of the world overwhelmed him and he needed to find the strength to go on. It was his sanctuary, the tree you see over there. Tobirama turned and pointed towards a tall, majestic oaken tree in the middle of the ledge. It was the first tree he ever grew. Naruto followed his gaze. It looks so strong. Tobirama smiled softly. The harsh lines in his face eased, and for a moment, decades of hardship seemed to fall from him, making him look so much younger. It carries the strength of my brother's dream to bring an end to the circle. I think it's the cycle of hatred, not the circle of it. Bring an end to the cycle of hatred and peace to the world, so that children don't have to fight anymore. Peace to the world? Naruto muttered quietly, slowly stepping towards the tree. He stretched his hands out and hesitated, before laying it gently against the trunk. It was a fleeting and reverent touch, but it lasted long enough for Naruto to feel the happy approval of his solemn oath. Oh, I guess it was a circle. This circle, I swear, I will break it, and I will never go back on my word. Believe it. Tobirama had hesitated about bringing Naruto here. This place had been his brother's sanctuary, his sanctuary. It meant the world to the both of them, and the idea of sharing it with someone had been unsettling. He had never brought anyone here, neither did his brother. They had kept this place as a secret between them and guarded it jealously, because it was something that only belonged to them. But this child was different. It was so similar to Hashirama that it both hurt and comforted him. They might not share looks, but at their hearts, they were the same. It was that similarity that drove him to teach Naruto in the first place. and now that he watched a child solemnly swear himself to the same cause his brother had believed in, he felt like he had never made a better choice. I am going to teach you the shadow clone technique. It will allow you to form a solid clone so you can spar with each other. Tobirama's eyes bore into the child's eyes. It is a very dangerous and forbidden technique, so you will not use it without my explicit permission, and you will only use it on the ledge. If I catch you using it on your own, I will be very displeased. Do you understand? Naruto swallowed and nodded. Understood. The Naiden was the last person he wanted to be angry at him. His sensei could be very scary, even without a solid body. But now that he was getting more and more tangible, Naruto really did not want to get on his bad side. Good, the man rose. Now, pay attention. Tobirama watched as his young charge sparred with his own clone. His movements were still rather sloppy, and his defense was glaringly open, but he was coming along quite nicely. Granted, the shadow clone technique was not the best way to teach the child how to fight. Naruto was practically fighting against himself, so his opponent's mindset was exactly the same, and if he hit too hard, his clone would dispel. But for now, it would do. At least until he had gained enough presence to teach the child himself. He already felt stronger each day. It was strange. He never expected to be more than an unseen, powerless ghost. But now, the longer he spent with the child, the stronger he became. He could already feel the faint echo of a very familiar warmth flowing through him. His chakra was coming back. Tobirama allowed himself a faint smile. It seemed like things were starting to look up. Across the clearing, Naruto burst his clone. Weeks passed by and an autumn came, fallen leaves painting the streets in red and gold. Naruto looked out of the window. People were busily mingling about, and the sound of laughter and drunken singing carried through the transparent wall. It was that time again, the Kyubi Festival, one of Konoha's biggest festivals, always celebrated on the same day, his birthday. But it was never for him, never with him. Blue, unseeing eyes were fixed on the blood-red letters painted on the streets in front of his house, and Naruto felt a single tear trickling down his cheek as the cruel message burnt itself into his mind. Die, demon. A cool hand came to rest on his head. It did not pass through. Naruto leaned into the touch and cried. Sensei? Naruto asked quietly once he had calmed down. Do you think I could graduate early? The Naide moved his hand to the child's shoulder and fixed him with a serious gaze. What brought this on? Naruto lowered his head. I want to get stronger, he answered softly. I want to prove myself. I just can't. His eyes flickered to the window. I just can't take it anymore. The words went unsaid, but Tobirama understood them just as well. His lips thinned and his grip on the child tightened. Very well, he agreed calmly. We will up your training. Be prepared. Naruto could have cried in relief. Thank you, he muttered sincerely and rested his head against the man's chest. Thank you for everything. Tobirama smiled grimly. He was turning another child into a killer, and the child was thanking him for it. Sorry, Hashi, he whispered quietly over the sleeping child's head. Hashirama smiled sadly in his mind. I am proud of you, Naruto, the Hokage told him later that day when he brought the boy a bowl of birthday ramen. You're improving rapidly. Naruto beamed at him. I spent lots of time practicing, Gigi. I even got to the library. That you did, the Hokage agreed calmly. And had this not been a surprise on his own, Naruto not only willingly picking up a book, but visiting a library, he had nearly dropped his pipe when he had seen that in the crystal ball. It seemed like there was way more of his father in him than he thought. Tobirama snorted lightly. He was leaning against the window sill, watching his students interact with each other. There was an interesting dynamic between them. It seemed like his old student cared for the young child, at least to a certain degree. He wondered how much of his care stemmed from true affection and how much of it from guilt. There was no doubt that Hiruzen had failed the child, and if Tobirama was honest... Sorry, just got a call. Let me mute that. Okay. And if Tobirama was honest with himself, he was disappointed in his old student. He was the Hokage, the highest authority, and yet he was unable to keep his own people in line and allowed Konoha to fall to this state. It was unacceptable. There were a lot of choice words Tobirama had to say to him, but luckily enough for Hiruzen, he was not able to see him. He could probably get Naruto to play translator for him, but that would mean telling their secret, something he had no intention of doing. That reminded him, he really needed to teach Naruto some sign language. He made a mental note to fit it into the future lessons. Gigi, his charge suddenly begun. I want to try for early graduation. Surprise flitted over the third's face. Early graduation? But why, Naruto? There is no need for you to graduate early. Why don't you enjoy your childhood a bit more? Because I want to prove myself, the young child answered firmly. I want them to accept the end. And I don't want to wait anymore. The Hokage's eyes softened and he sighed. If this is what you want, I will not stop you. You may try. Really? Yes. The third smiled slightly. I will take care of the paperwork. Now I believe we need some more ramen, right? Yeah, Naruto agreed enthusiastically. It was 2 weeks later when Naruto hit a roadblock named Bunshin no Jutsu. No matter what he tried, he could just not get it done. His clones, if he managed to produce them, looked flimsy and ill and lasted no longer than a second. Tobirama was at a loss as well. He knew Naruto was making the correct signs and he had walked him through the jutsu step by step several times now. It was a very simple technique, so simple it barely required any chakra at all. But perhaps, Tobirama mused as he watched his frustrated student. This was the problem. Naruto's chakra reserves were massive. Maybe it was like trying to cut off a needle-thick slice of bread with a blunt butter knife. An impossible feat, which was a problem, since producing a clone was a graduation requirement. Making a snap decision, Tobirama told Naruto to stop. You need to talk to Hiruzen. Talk to Gigi? Naruto asked, coming to a stand next to the man. Why? As it stands, you're incapable of using the regular clone technique, which in the long run is inconsequential since you're already able to produce a shadow clone. This is, however, a forbidden technique, and nothing you can learn without guidance. Naruto nodded slowly. It made sense, even if his explanation had been slightly complicated, but Naruto was getting better in deciphering and matching his sensei's way of speaking. So I need him to provide me an excuse for learning it, he concluded, rather proud of being able to correctly use a grown-up word like provided. Indeed, Tobirama agreed. And even if he does not hand you the shadow clone technique, he might come up with a different solution. Whatever it may be, take it and do not push it. Understood, Naruto answered, doing his best to look as solemn as his teacher. Good. Now, what was the sign for danger? Seeing the Hokage was normally not an easy feat. Unless you were a shinobi urgently reporting in, you had to fill in lots of forms and apply for an audience. Luckily, Naruto was an exception to this rule. He had been in and out of the Hokage office so often that nobody really cared anymore about his presence, unless serious matters were being discussed. But today was a slow day and Hiruzen was right there happy about getting a valid excuse to take a break from his paperwork. Naruto! He took out his pipe and smiled at the young child. How are you? I'm good, Gigi, the boy answered cheerfully. And you? Same old, the Hokage replied, sounding rather amused. Now, what brings you here? It has been quite a while. Oh, Naruto smiled sheepishly and hopped on the chair. I need your advice, Gigi. Oh, the Hokage looked interested. On what? Are you having problems? Kind of, Naruto answered and shrugged his shoulders. It's the clone technique. I just can't get it to work. My clones always look sick. The man hummed thoughtfully. Can you show me? Naruto jumped up and formed the hand seals. Three rather sickly looking clones appeared next to them. They looked like death warmed over. I see, the old man murmured thoughtfully. The hand signs are correct, and I cannot detect any flaws in your execution. How much chakra are you using? Not much, Naruto answered honestly and tilted his head. Less than I use for tree walking, he clarified once he understood why the Naidame was making the sign for tree behind the Hokage's head. The Hokage raised an eyebrow. You already know how to tree walk? Yup, Naruto answered cheerfully. It's not that hard, he added with a careless shrug. He wasn't lying. After the pendant exercise, he had gotten it down rather quickly. A second eyebrow joined the first. Well done. Naruto would have beamed at the praise, but since he wanted to be more like his sensei, who, in his unbiased opinion, was super awesome, he settled for a smile. Thank you. The third nearly dropped his pipe in surprise at the almost modest reaction. Naruto was really turning out in surprising ways. He coughed to cover his slight break of composure. Since you're already capable of doing that, the problem does not seem to be with your control, but rather with your chakra itself. The clone technique does not require much chakra at all. This is one of the reasons it is taught at the academy, but it appears that your natural chakra is too high to be lowered that far. Naruto nodded. That was about the same thing his sensei had concluded. So what can I do? That was the question he was here for. There's one technique that might be of help to you, the Hokage answered thoughtfully. It was passed down by one of the former Hokages, the Naidame himself. It is called the Shadow Clone Jutsu. The chakra requirement is extremely high. Because of this, it is named as a forbidden technique. The Hokage rose from his seat. But I believe it might just be the right thing for you. Tobirama smirked. Naruto cheered silently. Mission accomplished. Konoha had always been a village of many secrets. Secrets the general population was not privy to. Some of them were restricted to shinobi, others to the village's elite, and the most important of them were only known by the Hokage himself. One of these Hokage-only secrets was the knowledge of the archive below the Hokage monument. It did not contain things like citizen records or mission reports, but rather more sensitive information crucial to the village's security, like the seals used to form the village's protective barrier, or records of the incident that by official statement had not happened at all. Tobirama floated through the hidden entrances into the vast stone room. His eyes flickered to the torches lining the walls. They were still lit. He smiled sadly as he remembered the day Mito-san had crafted them. These torches are called Everlights, she had told him. We use them everywhere in Uzu. Everlights, he had asked, and Mito-san had smiled her soft, gentle smile. Once lit, they will never extinguish. They will keep on burning, even if we are no more. Of course they will, his brother had added. The will of fire is not easily extinguished. Tobirama shook his head to get rid of this strange melancholic feeling that had suddenly overcome him. This was not the right time to lose his focus. He walked past 4 doors, each inscribed with the name of one Hokage, and stopped in front of the pedestal at the end of the room. There were 3 labeled pictures on it. The first belonged to Mito-san, the second to a red-haired woman named Uzumaki Kushina, and the third to a young boy he was most familiar with, Uzumaki Naruto. He had been correct. The child he was teaching really jailed the Kyuubi, and he had no idea about it. Tobirama's lips thinned. Just what had Hiruzen been thinking? Meanwhile, Naruto was sitting on a brick wall, legs dangling down and cheerfully munching on a dango stick as he observed the people passing by. His sensei had floated off somewhere else this morning to check on something and left him with the instructions to find a civilian to secretly trail. While he was walking through the overfilled streets looking for a suitable target, he had encountered a dango stall and managed to snatch the last box. Swinging his legs, he watched curiously as a black-haired boy approached a dango stall. There was something metallic glittering in his head, a headband. The boy was a shinobi. Instantly interested, Naruto inched slightly forward to listen in. "Good afternoon. I would like to order 1 box, please." The owner gave him an apologetic look. "I'm sorry, Uchiha. I am all out today." "Oh," the boy answered slowly, his shoulders dropping slightly. "Well, it can't be helped. Thank you anyway." "If you come back tomorrow, I'll have new ones," the man assured him. The boy nodded once and politely excused himself. Naruto looked from the half-eaten stick in his hand and to the still full box next to him. Somehow he felt bad. Making a spontaneous decision, Naruto turned until he was laying on his stomach and called for the elder boy. "Psst. Hey you, Uchiha. Hey you, the Uchiha down there." The boy stopped and slowly looked up. "Are you talking to me?" "Yup." Naruto grinned at him, waving his dango stick invitingly. "I have a full box of dango here. Wanna share?" Black eyes widened. "Really?" he asked, sounding both reserved and hopeful at the same time. "Yeah," Naruto agreed cheerfully. "Come up, or should I come down?" The boy answered by flickering out of sight and appearing right next to him. "That was cool," complimented him sincerely, and Naruto complimented him sincerely and maneuvered himself back into a seating position. He grabbed the box and offered it to his new dango partner. The older boy smiled slightly and sat down, gratefully reaching for one of the sticks. "Thank you." "No problem," Naruto replied and grabbed the second one. "I am Naruto Uzumaki, by the way. And you?" "Uchiha Itachi. Nice to meet you, Naruto." "Same here, Itachi." There was a moment of comfortable silence as both children enjoyed their treats. "If you don't mind me asking," Itachi began finally, throwing a curious look at the younger child, "what are you doing up here?" Naruto shrugged around his rice ball and slowly chewed before answering, "Relaxing." Itachi stared at him. "This is a 10-foot wall. 10-foot wall, he stated flatly, lowering his dango stick. "Yup." Naruto gently shoved the box in Itachi's direction. "Good place to watch people." It was a good place, Itachi agreed, even if somewhat obvious, but then nobody expected someone as young as Naruto to watch them. "That's what you've been doing?" "Yup," Naruto replied easily. "I'm looking for a civilian to trade." "You're doing stealth training?" The older boy paused in his acquisition of a second treat in favor of throwing Naruto an interested look. Naruto hummed lightly. "Yup, but I didn't find an interesting target. They all looked so boring." "Most of the time, shadowing someone is an uninteresting duty," Itachi replied slowly, finally picking up the second dango stick. "It requires quite a lot of patience." He bit into his rice ball and chewed slowly. Naruto sighed. "I'm not a very patient person. I guess that's why I've been told to do this." Itachi threw him a thoughtful look. "Then you should start with trailing after someone you already know. Keeping things more personal in the beginning might help you focus. People tend to be more invested in acquaintances than strangers." "Someone I know," Naruto repeated. There was another silence as he mused over Itachi's words. Who did he know that was not a ninja and someone he cared about? Of course, Twitchy. Maybe he could even watch him make ramen. He grinned brightly. "That's brilliant. Thanks, Itachi." He shoved the box with the 3 remaining sticks into the boy's hand. "Here, take that." Itachi stared at his unexpected cargo. "You're welcome, Naruto, but that is not necessary." "Just take it. I had enough," Naruto answered cheerfully. "I'll go train now. It was nice meeting you, Itachi." "Goodbye." He waved at the older boy and effortlessly walked down the high wall. "I've got ramen to spy on." "Goodbye," Itachi answered automatically, staring after the confusing young child. That was how Shisui found him 5 minutes later. Yo, Itachi, what's up with you? What are you doing up there? Itachi slowly turned his head towards his best friend. Apparently, I'm advising children to spy on edible nutrients. What? It was almost evening when Naruto arrived at the ledge. His sensei was already there, standing next to the tree and staring into space. His posture was tense, and Naruto immediately felt a strong sense of foreboding. The feeling only increased when the Naidame turned and fixed him with a very serious gaze. Naruto, sit down. We need to talk. The child swallowed and nervously settled himself next to the Shodai's tree. About what, sensei? Well, what happened the day you were born? Tobirama was not very good at conveying emotions. He was not an expressive person and preferred calm and cleanly given messages. He was definitely not the right person to tell Naruto about his burden. He had no idea how to ease him into the truth. He was not his brother. He did not have Hashirama's empathy. But the child had to know, so Tobirama did what he could do best. He steeled himself and told the pain-cold facts, and then he watched. He watched as Naruto's anger turned into sadness. He listened as the child screamed and cried, and when the tiny frame finally broke down, sobbing and overwhelmed by his emotions, he put a hand on the child's shoulder and pushed him gently but firmly against the Shodai's tree. Trapped between the strong residing presence of the first and the second Hokage, Naruto slowly relaxed. He could not move, but he did not want to. He wanted to stay right between them, borrowing their strength, and be held together, just for a bit longer. Tobirama's hand stayed where it was long after the child had fallen into an uneasy sleep.